Hi and welcome to the Beatitudes home group series. We're so excited that you're joining us and that you're taking the time to really dig a bit deeper and invest in your spiritual growth in these next couple of weeks. We really trust that it will be meaningful for you. These next 8 weeks we'll be talking about the Beatitudes, and these are these really quite strange statements that Jesus made as he began preaching in the famous Sermon on the Mount that we find in Matthew chapter 5. And it was a significant thing because he gathered all these people together, and this is what he kind of said to them at the start of his ministry, as we read it in Matthew, as he spoke to them about what it really means to be a part of the kingdom of God and to be a follower of Jesus.
So, as most of you know already, if you don't, there are 8 Beatitudes that are found in Matthew 5, and it's kind of we kind of see it as a picture of a journey up a mountain and then a descension. So, ascension and descension off the mountain, and the first 4 are kind of this process of obtaining God, of kind of finding God and being connected to God and pursuing God. And then the next 4 are the ones, the descension into what has God called us to do as Christ followers, as Christians. What are we called to do beyond just our own pursuit of God and our own kind of looking up the mountain and getting to the top of the mountain, but actually what does it look like going down? So
the Beatitudes really are character traits that we need to develop in our journey with Jesus. The first 4 help us to get to a point of really experiencing God and being in relationship with Him, and then the next 4 are all about how we live that out practically in our day-to-day lives in the world, and it changes how then we engage with other people.
Yeah, and we really pray that the next 8 weeks are going to be significant in taking your relationship deeper. So not just being on a Sunday, but actually going deeper in community and in our own walk with God.
So just a bit of background, just in terms of what was happening at this stage in Matthew. Jesus had been preaching and teaching in Galilee, and he'd been doing miracles, and so this big crowd was gathered, and he went up onto a mountain and sat there just mainly for the acoustical advantage as he spoke sort of down into the valley to the people. And he told his disciples these statements. He starts with this as he preaches the Sermon on the Mount, and each one starts with blessed are, and then he inserts a character trait. So as a starting point, I guess we have to understand, what does it mean to be blessed? I think we see that a lot as sort of a hashtag on people's statuses on things.
No, hashtag beautiful wife.
Hashtag blessed. So brownie points for you. So we see hashtag blessed, I think, next to everything from I got a promotion to I'm on holiday to there's a nice plate of food in front of me.
But what does it truly mean to be blessed?
What does it really mean to be blessed? So the Amplified translation of the Bible and some of the lexicons and the commentaries give us this translation. I'm going to read it to you. It says, blessed means happy, to be envied, spiritually prosperous, possessing life joy as a result of God's favor and salvation, regardless of outward conditions, happy, joyous, and satisfaction in God. That's a big concept.
Yeah, it's a big one. When Jesus speaks about the status of his followers, he uses this term to be blessed. Now, it's almost the obtaining of the riches of heaven. So in order to obtain the riches of heaven, we need to be poor in spirit. We need to be at the bottom, kind of humbling ourselves to what it is that God is calling us to do as Christ followers.
Yeah, and that's really where the first Beatitude starts. That blessing is something that's beyond happiness. I think we sometimes think, I'm blessed because I'm happy and things are really going well. But blessing is an eternal reality. It's about experiencing the kingdom of God. And Jesus came to bring the kingdom of God into our present reality. Notice that it doesn't say you will be blessed if you do this sort of in a future reality. No, blessed now are those who do these things.
And it's also this, we flippantly say we're happy when we get a new car, we get a new house, or we get a new material object, or, so happiness has this connotation to just be in the moment, whereas to be blessed is to be rooted beyond just what is happening in the here and now. It's to be blessed beyond my current circumstances, to be beyond how I'm feeling, to be beyond how I react to things. But blessed is to be joyous in all occasions.
So the first Beatitude that we start with this week is, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And this is really the first step in discipleship. In order to be a disciple, we have to start with being poor in spirit. So what does that really mean?
It means realizing the need for God. And I think as we start this journey up the mountain, it's this, actually, I am, in essence, nothing without God. And it's this need and this realization that I am nothing without God, and I need God, and the acknowledgement of self-insignificance. And in the world kind of tells us the complete opposite. The world tells us you got to strive to be better than the person next to you. You are worth more than, and God says
no. The world also tells us that we have to be self-sufficient. We have to be self-made. We have to depend on ourselves.
Look good all the time.
Look good, be good. We can't be dependent on other people. That's a sign of weakness.
You can't be poor. You've got to be rich. You can't be weak. You've got to be strong. There's this and then Jesus comes along and says, "Be poor. Be the least of these, and you will inherit the kingdom of heaven."
And that's kind of like, no one really wants to be poor. It's a strange thing to say and to start with. Like, if you're blessed if you're poor, I think we all tend to think we're blessed if we're not poor.
When God gives me R1 million, then I'm blessed. But that's the complete opposite to what the scriptures actually tell us, is this complete poverty of self, to relinquish self to obtain more of God.
I love the Message translation of this verse says, you're blessed when you're at the end of your rope, because with less of you, there's more of God and His rule.
And this is the starting point. More of His rule is the starting point of discipleship and this journey to the peak of the mountain.
And I think we have this idea that we have to bring our ability and our strength and all of the good things about ourselves, whereas God actually says, come to me with your poverty, knowing that you have nothing of value to offer. You cannot bring anything that can save yourself. You are helpless, actually, and weak. And you have to acknowledge that. We have to know how much we need God. And the Pharisees and the religious leaders at the time, I think Jesus had issues with them because they were not humble.
Yeah, they were the complete opposite. They were pursuit of self, and everything that they did, the rules, the regulations, the more you did, the better you were in the Old Testament.
It's all about what I can do, it's all
achieve.
about me.
Whereas Christ turns the whole table on this thing and says, "Poor, be poor," and it's mind. It's a mind shift. It's a complete change of the way it was. Yeah.
There's a great paradox in this Beatitude, and in all of them actually we'll see. But Jesus says, blessed are the poor in spirit, because why? Because theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And if you think of the poor, they are those who don't possess anything. They don't have anything to call their own. And yet Jesus says the poor in spirit are those who actually possess the kingdom of heaven, which is the thing of most significance and value that there is.
Yeah, it's kind of like that thing which we've heard so many times in church, and probably in church circles we probably said it ourselves, is when we bring our emptiness to God and we open up our hands and we relinquish ourselves of all the things that we want to obtain of self, then He will fill us up, and that filling up, that emptying of ourselves is us obtaining the kingdom of God. It's when there is nothing left of ourselves and God is able to work within us, then that is that image of being poor in spirit and obtaining the kingdom of God.
So being poor in spirit is really where the journey of discipleship begins. We can't be a follower of Jesus until we acknowledge and before we realize that we have nothing within ourselves that make us worthy. And yet God
calls us, nothing to offer.
We have nothing to offer, and yet God calls us His own and His beloved, and chooses us to be in a relationship with Him. And so that's the starting point for this journey of the mountain to experiencing God.